Today's episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast is brought to you by Poor Richard's Cafe and Star Local Media. Poor Richard's Cafe, Plano's oldest restaurant since 1973. They are open daily from 5:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m., serving the three most important meals of the day: breakfast, lunch, and dessert. It is true Texas home-style cooking made with love and grit. That is Poor Richard's Cafe, located off of Avenue K in Plano. Welcome to another episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. My name is Matt Welch. I'm the sports editor at Star Local Media, and I am being joined by Kendrick Johnson and Devin Hassan. Over the last couple editions, we've been playing catch-up, trying to touch on some of the notable storylines in both girls basketball and boys basketball. We're going to stick with hoops for this edition of the podcast, only this time we're going to talk about some of the marquee games that are left on the regular season for our respective markets. We're going to go, the three of us, then we're going to bring on Taylor, Justin, and Brian. We're each going to give one boys game, one girls game to watch, as yes, district play is fully is underway in earnest. So let's talk a bit about some of the marquee matchups that are left on our coverage docket. Devin, we can stick with you, man. So I guess if you want to go set either whether it's Rowlett, Saxe, Mesquite ISD, just talk a bit about one girls game, one boys game. What are the marquee games left in your neck of the woods for the season?
On the girls side, I'm looking at 10-6A, and I'm looking at Saxe and Rowlett. Yes. It comes down in so many sports. It comes down to those two teams. But this year is particularly intriguing. The Saxe girls have ruled that district. They've won 47 district games in a row. Coming off that state title appearance or state tournament appearance a season ago, and they've just. You thought they were going to get a challenge maybe last week against Lakeview, who entered that game with an undefeated district record, and they won 73-33. It's just been that kind of dominance. They're ranked number 4 in the state this week in the basketball coaches poll. We talked about them before, that starting lineup all intact from last year. Avery Krause, the UTEP signee, Jayla Brooks, Tia Harvey, Kayla Demas. They really kind of run 4 guards around their post at LTAC. And they're the prohibitive favorite, and they've barely been challenged, I think, in the last year and a half, or in the last, I'd say, 20 district games, they've had one decided by single digits. So they really haven't had any serious challengers. Rowlett,
think they
this
could?
year may be able to answer that call. They're also off to a fantastic start. Nagazi Openecki, their senior who signed with Texas Women's University. One of the big changes they did was they moved her to more of a point forward. She leads the team in scoring at 17 points a game. She's still active on the board. She leads the team with 9 rebounds a game, but she also runs that offense. And she's very athletic, she's got a great feel for the game, and she's made that smooth transition to running the offense. She averages 3.4 steals, almost 4 assists per game. Just a great all-around player, probably the 10-6A most valuable player if it were voted on today. The other big change with Rowlett, in addition to her shifting positions, is the arrival of 2 freshmen that have made an immediate impact. Nevaeh Zavala and Nadia Cooper. Nadia Cooper is actually a late transfer in. They both got late starts. They were both volleyball players, so they really didn't get into the system. Obviously, as freshmen coming in, that just pushes their progression back a little bit more, but they've made an instant impact. They're both averaging, right around 8 to 9 points per game, and having those weapons on the outside and around Nagazi Openecki, and they've got other role players as well that have really kind of fit into Coach Alexis Hill's system. So the thing about freshmen is there's so much upside. They're only going to get better as the season progresses. So really curious to see how these two shake up. We've talked measuring sticks in past podcasts here, talking about basketball. This is the big one on Friday. Can Rowlett give Saxe a serious challenge? And again, it's the first 2 meetings. They also meet in the regular season finale on February 5th. So the winner of the game on Friday will have the inside track on the district title, but it may come down to that February 5th game to decide it all.
Okay. For my girls game, I'm leaning towards a game that I've already seen once. This was the district opener between Allen and Plano Senior. They are going to rematch at Plano on January 15th. I'm just anxious to see this game just because the first game felt kind of incomplete as far as what I would expect out of how these two teams would match up against each other. Plano ran Allen off the floor in Allen's own gym. 58-38. This wasn't even a contest, and very surprising considering that these were two teams that I believe were at the time ranked in the state's top 10. You wouldn't expect that, two teams of that caliber with the kind of players that they have, that this would have been a 20-point game. And just from what we've seen of these two, it doesn't feel like there's just 20 points difference between these two teams. The big takeaways from that first meeting were Allen really struggled against that zone defense that Plano runs. Head coach Teresa Durham said after the game that it wasn't for a lack of preparation. They had installed several schemes to attack a zone. The light bulb went out, and they just couldn't figure out what to do. And so they had a really tough time moving the ball. A lot of very stagnant offense by Allen. And then on the other end of the floor, this is probably the more telling thing, because I do think in this rematch that Allen's going to be a bit better prepared for that zone defense, having already seen it one time. The bigger question will be how much resistance do they offer at the rim, because Plano attacked them at will in the paint. I want to say that I think they only made like 1 3, and maybe every other basket in that game felt like it was in the paint for them. So I'm just banking on a smarter approach, on offense by Allen, and then I think you're going to get a much more evenly contested game between the Lady Wildcats and the Lady Eagles. Plus, you get a matchup between two of the top players in the country, Nia Green and Jordan Merritt. Those two players are going to be vying for that district MVP honor at the end of the season. Should be a great one between Allen and Plano the second time around. Kendrick, what was your girls' game to watch the rest of the way?
Plano Senior. I didn't see them beat McKinney. I saw the box score. I was like, what?
Oh, yeah. That was a...
But from what I've heard and what I know from the McKinney, Erin Fry, their star guard had 28 points. She had 10 in the fourth quarter. I know we don't have a Close of the Year award, but she should be in the running because she closed out Plano West the other day with 15 in the fourth quarter. Other night, they were down by 20, and she had 12 and almost came back against Plano East. And she's that girl that when the money's on the table, she comes up big. And evidently, that's what happened the first time, because it's a 1-point lead, and Plano got scored by McKinney 20-14. So we're gonna see if they can do it again. But I know that was the first time I saw Jordan Merritt in person. Last year she had 21 and 12 in a kind of a game that kind of swung Plano's season. Like they went from pretenders to contenders. So it's gonna be the opposite this year. We're gonna see if McKinney's pretenders are the contenders, if they can beat them twice, because in the big picture where every game counts, I think they're going to need to sweep the Lady Wildcats if they're going to get in that Final Four.
Because they picked up that win over Plano in Plano's home gym, so they do have the road win already, and they get the Lady Wildcats again in McKinney on January 22nd, Tuesday night. That one.
Yeah, that's going to go a long way to tell part of the 9-6-8 puzzle that is girls basketball.
Because that was the first time that any team had made Plano look human. Plano just rolled through that first week of district, blowing out Allen, blowing out Plano West, and then they have no answer for Erin Fry. So yeah, it should be interesting to see.
I think because she plays for McKinney and they don't got the pizzazz. Last year they had the big three.
Yeah.
So she's kind of like a dark horse because you hear about the marriage.
Oh yeah, she's in a district that has some of the best players in the country, so it's really easy to go overlooked.
Yeah.
Erin Fry is as legit a scorer as any of those other number one options in this district.
And the key if McKinney's going to beat is they're going to have somebody else step up. Last time it was Trinity White. Sometimes they have Aaron Jackson. Somebody, as Shaquille O'Neal likes to say, other has to come to the top when they play, because Merritt's going to get hers. Last time, Sawyer Collins at 15. Yeah. So they know their key players are going to show up. So the supporting cast from McKinney has to be ready for that game.
Yeah. Let's shift gears to the boys' side of the hard court. Devin, give me that. What is your boys' game to watch the rest of the way?
I'm looking at 11-6A, which is kind of it's been an odd district so far. I mean, you got the two East Texas schools, and it's so hard to gauge just how good they are until you get a few games of district play under its belt. For instance, last week, Longview enters the game against North Mesquite. They're 21-3. And they're 2-0 in district, and North Mesquite beats them by 34. So that's 21-3 teams
not
lose by 34. It was in North Mesquite, but it's just so North Mesquite's gonna be a factor. Horns gonna be a factor. Obviously, Longview's gonna still be a factor. But my game to watch out there is Mesquite and Rockwall. I think just their bodies have worked so far, put them. I guess just a little up on a different tier thus far. I mean, again, it's going to be wide open. But, Mesquite has something to prove this year. They had their 15-year streak of making the playoffs snapped last year. Lost to North Mesquite in the regular season finale to fall into a play-in game, then North Mesquite double dipped them to knock them out. Yeah, we're going to throw baseball, softball tournament out here, even though they're about to start practicing. But I just Mesquite's 14-6 over. 14-6. Cody LeBlanc is one of those guys that just unlimited range. I mean, he'll pull up 4 or 5 feet down the 3-point line and can knock them down.
Those are always so much fun.
and DeAndre Heath, another guy in the backcourt that's a capable scorer, more of a slasher to the basket. They do have some size in the middle with Grant Stewart, 6'6", can run the floor really well. They're a deep team. Mesquite traditionally is deep when they've had their better teams. And I just think, and Brock Waldo right now, I think is probably the class of the district. Yeah. They've picked up some. They've been state ranked for most of the year. They've knocked off several state ranked teams. Samuel Williamson, their standout 6'7" guard, is signed with Louisville. He's, we talk about those guys that are capable of scoring 30, 40 points a night. He's one of them. Yeah. He's proven it time and time again. Alec Grandstaff is a guy that's capable. He's a streaky guy.
Last name is plenty familiar. Rockwell basketball lineage.
Yes, and so it's in that family line. The ability to once they get hot. I mean, those guys tend to go unconscious sometimes. Brady Moore is a 6'4", gives them some size. Jackson Smith, the football standout wide receiver. He's playing at basketball. His athleticism alone is enough to create some highlight reel plays. So. I'm thinking that game, February 1st is when they meet, and a lot still to be written, but I think that game could be for the district title.
I'm working for my boys' basketball game, kind of like my girls' selection. I'm working with a game that I've already seen once, so you kind of extrapolate some of the more interesting subplots from that game and just how it might materialize in a rematch. And I'm going between a matchup between the projected top 2 teams in District 9 6A, Allen and Jesuit. I got to see round 1 of the matchup between both teams who are ranked in the state's top 5 when they met last Wednesday. Jesuit got the W in the gym of Allen's freshman school, the Lowry Freshman Center. Jesuit was able to storm in, come away with a 78-72 victory in a game that had all the energy that you would expect out of a game between 2 of the best teams in the state. You had Jesuit and just army of 3-point shooters just going nuts from the outside, knocked down 13 threes. They overcame a 42-point effort by Allen's star player Isaiah Stevens. Don't know if you can bank on another 40-plus point from Isaiah Stevens. For Allen's sake, they better. I'm sure they're hoping that they don't. Just because, that was the big story, was really the first time that you had seen Allen just go to those lengths to lean on Stevens because they just could not generate offense elsewhere. The one thing about Allen is they've got a lot of players that are really good at attacking the basket, but the style of defense that Jesuit plays, a very pack line style, and they just really did a good job clogging up lanes in the paint and forced a lot of Allen's role players to really kind of second guess once they were able to put the ball on the floor, and just the openings either to the rim or a kick out pass, they just weren't there like they had been in the past, and Allen really had a tough time generating offense beyond Stevens. So I'm going to be interesting to see just how much they've evolved, how much because this is a young team at the heart of it. Allen's still really young, so there's plenty of time for them to grow from that, develop a much better offensive game plan to counter that style of defense that Jesuit plays. Plus, I don't even think we got to see that matchup in its truest sense because Jesuit's best player, their big man, Julius Marble, got hurt 2 minutes into the game. Whoa. So they still went without him, but in a sense, talking with Allen head coach Joe McCall afterwards, he said that, Jesuit's coach said that almost kind of, I guess, took some of the stress off of Jesuit, and they were just able to play with much more freedom, and they just let it fly. Because, they will put, 4 guys on the floor that are all capable of knocking down threes, and all 4 of them had a green light, and they did a really good job stretching the floor on Allen, looked every bit the part of one of the best teams in the state. So and plus, it's going to be at Jesuit. This game is going to be January 25th, Friday night. Jesuit student section always brings the goods, so I'm anticipating a fun one in the rematch between the Rangers and the Eagles later on this month.
So I'm piggyback off of Matt. I'm looking forward to see McKinney go. I want to see how McKinney matches up with the height.
Yeah.
Because they don't have no big guys that can deal with that problem. But they can match up with those shooters. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of defense Coach Watson come up with. But I don't know how they're going to solve that 6'8" problem. That's going to be a problem.
Julius Marble's a tough problem for everybody in the district.
That's going to be a tough one. And then it'll be interesting to see how McKinney responds on the road because, in this district, playing on the road and home is completely different. So it'll be interesting to see how that stuff lines up, since it seems like Jesuit, everybody's putting as the class. So you don't know where you're at unless you swing on the bully. So we'll see if McKinney will swing on the bully on the road and see what kind of results they get.
When do we get Allen and McKinney?
Allen McKinney's like next week, I think.
Because that's as an honorable mention. Obviously, we talked on Monday at length about Byron Scobie and Isaiah Stevens.
It'll be January 18th.
Two of the premier scorers in this district. And
McKinney, I'll be there.
Okay, yeah.
I've seen Mr. Stevens in person. I haven't seen Mr. Stevens.
We'll probably get a lot of. I'd imagine those two will probably go for at least 25 apiece in that game. Feels like
he put the prediction.
Don't know who's going to win, but I feel like at the very least, because those players are competitors and they don't want to show out against each other. So, and they'll probably be guarding each other for quite a bit of the game too.
Does Allen win a lot of man?
Yeah. So it's January 18th at McKinney, and then the rematch will be February 12th at Allen.
Going big picture, I think it's going to be difficult for different teams to zone these teams in 9-6A. They have too many people that can bust you up.
Really?
You don't want to zone any of these teams. I'm pretty sure Jesuits got to neutralize with the big guy, but from the little I've seen of Allen, you don't want to zone them. Don't want to zone McKinney. Even Plano teams, you don't really want to zone up.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting seeing how they match up, because I think this district, in a weird way, you see the microcosms. It's set up to launch pad to like 3 or 4 teams going deep.
Oh yeah, always no shortage of talent in District 9-6A for sure. So let's
people think about football, they don't think about basketball. Like, y'all sleep on these hoopers. Go check these kids out. They can play.
Let's so we're going to shift gears then and bring Taylor Ragland, Justin Thomas, Brian Murphy on to talk about some of the standout games in their necks of the woods. But first off, got to shine that student athlete spotlight, and for this we went out to Plano East to talk with the standout for the Lady Panthers, Tavy Diggs, committed to TCU, on her standout season and the youthful Plano East team and how they're progressing, and we will see what Tavy had to say after a word from the sponsor. Today's podcast is brought to you by Star Local Media. 14 newspapers and websites with a print distribution of 270,000 homes and monthly page views of 600,000 online. Star Local Media, your community voice for news. And now, let's get back to the podcast.
How's it going, everybody? This is Taylor Ragland out here at Plano East with Lady Panther senior star Tavy Diggs and TCU signee. Tavy, I guess the first question is kind of a big picture one. Before the holiday break, you guys were 1-2 in District 9-6A, a pretty tough district, but coming out of the break, you guys have won 3 in a row in pretty impressive fashion, including a win over West this week, in which you had 30 plus, I believe. So, what's kind of been behind the turnaround, and how important was that break for you guys?
I think that break, it was really important because we played in the Sandra Meadows tournament, and then we got to see more talent and then compare ourselves and compete against other teams that's not in our district. And so I think we learned a lot from playing in the Sandra Meadows tournament, and then that turnaround, we had Plano right after that, after we had lost to Duncanville. And so I think that was big. We came in practice the next day, just working hard, going through that 2-3 zone, just trying to make sure we had enough to win. Because I told them, after we had lost, we were 1-2, lost that tough loss to Allen. I was like, I'm not losing any more district games this round. And so I think me telling them that, and then it just revolves and just reflects around everybody else. And then I think we all had the same demeanor coming out, finishing this first half of district. Right.
You mentioned the Plano game. Obviously, you had a pretty big bucket in that one with 10 seconds left to put you guys up. And then, as I mentioned, you had 30 plus against West this week for the win in that game as well. So, how important is it to you to really show out for your senior season and for those games, especially those rivalry games?
It means a lot because, I'll never get these games back. That's what my parents tell me. And then, especially the rivalry games, since I played against these girls in middle school, and I remember them A-team and B-team tournaments, and just building those friendships, and it's a rivalry. I'm not gonna let you beat me in middle school and stuff like that, especially with Plano West.
Right. Coach Morris talks a lot about how you guys have a real mix of upperclassmen and underclassmen, old and new kind of, and I know that it's been important to you to kind of step up and be a leader and distribute the ball and really try to get everybody involved. How has your game maybe changed a little bit to do that, and how do you feel you've done it this season?
I think my game has changed differently. I think from my junior year, I was all scoring and being more, I got to score the ball first to win. I think now if I pass it and then rebound instead of screen, and it just helps my team, it gets them going. And if they get going, it's you can't stop. You can stop one person, but you got to stop all 5. And so I think it gives my teammates, especially the younger ones, the freshmen, the confidence to score. That they're not just giving me the ball. It's not that type of team anymore. It's just everybody can score, and if everybody scores, we have a chance to win.
Right. Speaking speaking of, everybody scoring and everybody chipping in, that Plano game especially, I thought Kendall was really good.
Yeah.
Not a freshman, but a sophomore, so you guys have some chemistry there. But what have you seen from her this season, and how have you kind of, helped her game along and helped her grow up a little bit?
I think Kendall's a great shooter, and I think if she gets her shot off, it'll probably go in. So I think me setting screens for her and then doing the ball handoffs really well so she has enough space to get her shot off, and then making the right passes, making sure you hit her shooting pocket so all she has to do is just go up and then run to the basket and rebound. She misses it.
Right. Getting back to district, I guess, this was a district that had a lot of hype coming in. I think, preseason 5 of you guys were ranked in the top 25 in the state by, the Coach Association and all that good stuff. So, what's kind of the mental attitude you need to have to play every day in this district and take on these teams when everybody, it seems like, has a star player and everybody can play with everybody?
I think the mentality that you have is that you can be anybody as long as you hustle, rebound. I think any team is beatable, but everybody has to come out hard and strong. You can't just let the star player just go off. We got to contain, play great defense. Great team defense is what's been really helping us.
Right.
So I think that's one of the main things is great team defense and offense. They can't score if you have the ball, so taking our time on offense and really counting the possessions that we have and making sure we do what we can with each possession is very important.
Right. A little bit of a surprise and Prosper, making the jump up to 6A and really showing out and running through district so far, including through you guys. So how much motivation is there in the second half to, not only play well as a whole, but get another shot at those girls?
It's very important. Coach Morris has been stressing that we got to get those 2 games that we lost, the Allen and Prosper game. So we've really been working on that. But we also got to get the Plano West game. Can't let off. So it's going to be really important. I really want to go 6-0 next round in district. So.
What's your main goal for the rest of your senior season?
Main goal? I really want to win district. That's it. Just really want to win district.
Absolutely. All right, Tavy. Well, thank you for your time. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll get back to the second half of the podcast shortly. This has been Taylor Regan out of Plano East with Plano East star senior Tavy Diggs.
All right, and welcome back to the second half of this edition of the podcast. Once again, I'm Brian Murphy. That's Justin Thomas. That's Taylor Ragland. And we're sticking with, big games on the hardwood, on the boys and the girls side. Second half of district play, and almost all of our districts is really starting to heat up and ramp up here down the home stretch here in January and February. And so, some teams have already played, some juicy matchups have already gone down in a lot of our markets, and they'll rematch, and some teams have yet to play each other so far this season. I don't know where to begin. There's so many good ones on the dock.
That makes it tough when you have some teams that still have 2 games against each other coming up and stuff.
Yeah. Now, who comes to mind when you think of 2 of those teams?
For me, I'm going to look at District 6A, and kind of on both sides I'm going to look at, and we'll stick with what's coming up shortly. So the girls in 6A finished the first half of district on Friday. The boys have only played 4 games, so they still have kind of half their first round of the round robin left. But big games on Friday in rivalry games. The ACT series on the hard court version, Louisville and Marcus. Both of these games are going to have big playoff implications on both the boys and the girls side. I guess just to kind of recap the standings where we're at right now. On the girls' side, you have MacArthur in first at 6-1. Hebron is all alone in second at 5-1, coming off a big triple overtime win over Louisville last night. And then you have Marcus and Louisville tied at 4-2 for third, and then Flower Mound just behind their heels in fifth at 3-3. So on Friday, Louisville goes to Marcus, and whoever gets a win there is going to finish the first half above 500, and they're going to be pretty solid footing in terms of the playoff chase, because they both already have wins head-to-head over fifth place Flower Mound. So whoever wins that game Friday is going to move to 4-3. The other one's going to drop to 3-4 and be alone in fourth. And so obviously that's a big game in terms of the footing that they have in the standings going into the second half of the round robin there. On the boys' side, it's a little different because obviously you haven't played as much, but you have kind of, in my opinion, a little surprise. Coppell 4-0, MacArthur 4-0. Then you have Hebron 3-1 beating Louisville last night, and so you have a tie for fourth between Louisville and Irving Nimitz, with Marcus right there at sixth at 1-3. So if Marcus can pull off the win over Louisville on Friday, that will get them to 2-3. Louisville will drop to 2-3. Everything would kind of get a little more jam-packed. But a loss would drop Marcus to 1-4 and put them in a real tough spot. I guess one thing Marcus does have going for them, they've already played Coppell, MacArthur, and Hebron. So their 3 losses are to the top 3 teams in the district. Louisville, conversely, hasn't played MacArthur yet. Their losses are to Hebron and Coppell. So
When do they play MacArthur?
that would be, let's see, I think that was the first game, so I think Tuesday
Okay.
they would play. But yeah, with so many of these teams not even playing each other once yet, 2 meetings, it's kind of hard to pinpoint one game, but that's the one that on Friday, especially if Louisville wins, that starts to see some separation between Marcus with Flower Mound and Irving, both have 0-4 already.
I really thought Hebron would be the team to beat, especially after what they did to Little Elm. I know you were at that game. They beat them pretty good. I mean, R.J. Hampton got his, but the rest of the team did literally nothing in the stat sheet at least. And so I really thought Hebron would be that team that would be 4-0 and not Coppell right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, MacArthur's looking like a good team, and Hebron was right there with it. Hebron and Coppell haven't got a chance to play yet. So obviously a chance if Hebron could win that one to get back into second, and obviously they'll have a second game with MacArthur. This whole district looks really tight. Marcus only lost to MacArthur by 5 last night. It's a pretty tight district. Coppell is 4-0 and Flower Mound is now 0-4. Coppell needed a tip in at the buzzer to beat them last night. So outside of Irving, I think Irving's pretty clearly the 8th place team in this district.
Poor
but
Irving.
outside of that, it's pretty competitive. I think you're going to see a lot of close games and a lot left to be decided, even though the standings are starting to take a little form.
Let's stick with 6A. How about those Prosper Lady Eagles?
Man, I'm actually going to talk about 2 Prosper teams and 2
okay.
Prosper games. But we can go with the girls first. I was out at Plano East today, for that interview with Tavy Diggs that you guys saw in the intermission, I guess is the word for it. But Plano East is on a bit of a resurgence here. They were 1-2 heading into the holiday break. Come out of the holiday break and now they're 4-2. All of a sudden, they've beaten Plano. They beat McKinney, I believe, and they just took down Plano West last night in a game that I talked about with Tavy. And they're kind of on the upswing. But then you have Prosper, who I wouldn't even call on the upswing. They've just been at the top. I mean, they're undefeated in district play, took down Plano East in their first meeting. I'm kind of like JT, where, 9-6A especially, the boys have only played 4 games, but the
you
girls
got that
are...
big district you guys started so earlier.
The girls are about to enter the second half. Plano East is done already with its first half. They have the bye Friday. But that game against Prosper, it's January 19th. And I think it's going to be, if things hold, that could be a potential district championship type game, because, the Allen girls have struggled a little bit, have lost to some teams that, we figured that Allen would be close to the top, but they've had some tough sledding.
They lost to Prosper last night.
Yeah, absolutely, for Prosper to stay undefeated. Plano Senior, 3-2, having 3-2 or 4-2, I can't remember. No, 3-2, that's right, because Plano East, I think, is the only one that's played the full slate of games. But, they have, obviously, talent and can sneak up on some people and make a run in the second half. But, it's shaping up to be kind of Prosper and Plano East at the top. So if you look at it, that way, 6 games left for East, that could be the biggest one. And that's not to discount, in this district, it feels like everybody's kind of cannibalizing everybody. Everybody can beat anybody on any given night. McKinney Boyd has really been the only outlier as far as wins and losses and still winless. But Allen could turn it on in the second half. Plano could turn it on. Plano West, Jaden Owens has been hurt for Plano West. If she comes back, they become even scarier.
That's been huge. Her being out,
it's been a big deal, and they've still been competitive. So if they come back, who knows? But right now, as far as where things are and the standings and the teams at the top, I have that one on January 19th circled, man. It should be a good rematch, especially between Jordan Oliver and Tavy Diggs. They were, straight up last time and really dueling each other, and Oliver won out. And a pretty tight game, got a little bit away from East at the end, but should be another good one in mid-January.
Oliver is really playing at the top of her game. I saw her play against McKinney and McKinney Boyd. She was sick in the game against Boyd. She still dropped 30
Flu
points.
game?
It was her Jordan Oliver flu game. It was, yeah. It's funny, 3 weeks ago there was 4 or 5 teams, girls 9-6A teams ranked in the state. Now I see just 2.
Yep.
Allen and Prosper. Allen number 10, Prosper 15. Prosper just beat Allen.
Yep.
Interesting to see.
Allen
Monitor that.
Falling.
Yeah, and see if Prosper climbs into that top 10 there. So, other girls teams that are in the top rankings in the state, Frisco Liberty and Frisco Lone Star. They played last week in an overtime thriller. Lone Star, they ran through the table last year, destroyed Liberty, destroyed everyone, and then this year, in the rematch, they were down by 15 in the second half. They needed, a late rally, a late crazy comeback, and overtime to beat them. And, I'm looking at that game. That's going to decide the district championship on that girls' side. And like you were mentioning earlier, that district's already, more than halfway through. They've already played 9 district games in that district right there. Frisco Lone Star's 9-0, Liberty's 8-1. Liberty's only loss is to Lone Star. That game will be, I think it's February 5th, the very, very last game of district. So that should be a fun one, basically a playoff primer to get ready for that. Adriana Quezada is filling in really nicely for Mallory Adams, who's killing it at San Diego State. But with that said, since we're shifted over to 5A, JT, there's a big 5A game next week.
Yeah, looking forward to the big Little Elm rivalry game.
That rivalry, man, like it's like when Little Elm beat South Garland last month. I was talking to RJ Hampton after the game. He told me, I asked him, I was like, is this your, playoffs aside and what have you, was this the biggest regular season win? He was like, man, this is the biggest win I've ever had. And then he was like, and then he brought up the Colony for some reason. He's like, oh, outside of the Colony, this is the biggest. And I was like, the Colony is really it's that crazy, it's that intense, and, it's that wild, and I guess it is. And
it's funny when you mentioned that Little Elm Hebron game that I covered earlier, and at halftime of that game, there was a big kind of I don't know if you recall seeing this on Twitter, but a big dance-off between the two crowds.
No, I did not see this.
Yeah, there was a couple people on the Little Elm side and a couple people on the Hebron side at halftime, kind of dancing off back across the court. And I just remember a lot of talk after seeing that video of, especially people at the Colony saying, well, if you thought that was crazy, just wait how lit it's going to be for when Little Elm comes to the Colony. So I'm not going to be walking out to the bathroom or the concession stand on Tuesday at halftime of that game. It should be a fun halftime in addition to the game on the court, which should be a really good one the way it's shaping up.
And the Colony's off to a red hot start.
Yeah,
they're ranked 7th in the state.
7th in the state.
19-4.
Yep, they just gave Northwest all they could handle. Had a 6-point lead after 3 quarters before coming up a little bit short. They beat a good Louisville team that I saw last Monday after the tournaments. They had a good showing in the tournament they hosted. Their only loss was to Wiley, state-ranked Wiley team that ended up winning the tournament. So yeah, they're playing very well, and they have senior leadership. They play really good defense. They have, they don't have to lean on one scorer. They have multiple guys that can score. And they played Little Elm, pretty good last year as well, especially in that second meeting. And
Coach Rusty Siegler, head coach at Little Elm, he told me something interesting the other day. He thinks this is the best team the Colony has had in the 9 years that he's been at Little Elm, and that's saying a lot. You said they went to state a while back or a few years ago, and so that really is some high praise, and it's showing in their wins and in the box scores and whatnot. So that's gonna be a fun one.
They made state in 2010.
That might have been right before Siegler got there.
Just before he got there.
But still, nonetheless, man, that's when he told me that, my jaw hit the floor. I was like,
they're just a good, sound team, well coached by Cleve Ryan there, and they're gonna be right in there. I think it should be a good game.
Safe to say, either myself or Justin will be at that game.
Somebody's
next
gonna
week.
be out
That's
there.
next Tuesday, January 15th, something like that. I think it's the 15th. Tuesday next week. But yeah, a lot on our plates for these next few weeks. A lot should be.
Basically, whoever wins that one is probably going to be the second team that has a chance to
top Northwest.
Especially with Northwest.
Well, that's another thing. I don't want to overlook Little Elm and Northwest this Friday. That's a big showdown. I have a big preview on that. But Little Elm, they just they needed a late rally to beat Denton Ryan last night. They won 71-69. They were down in that fourth quarter. But Northwest is beatable. The Colony almost beat them. This whole Northwest, the Colony, Little Elm, that trio right there at the top. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Denton Ryan, I saw them play the Colony too. They're a feisty little team that could.
That district as a whole, I think, is turning out a little bit less top heavy than we thought it would be. But before we wrap up, I wanted to, as I alluded to earlier, the Prosper boys team. I told you I would talk about them as well, and the context is because there's a real murky middle, I guess, kind of forming in 9-6A boys, as opposed to kind of a district where everybody can beat everybody. There's definitely some teams that have fallen toward the bottom of the 9-6A boys standings, but right in the middle there, literally dead in the middle. Prosper and Plano West are both at 2-2 right now through 4 games. Prosper got the better of them in the first matchup, and that's right underneath what appears to be a pretty solid top 3 in Dallas Jesuit, a McKinney team that I don't know if many of us saw coming in this way, but has played really well. Only loss, I believe, is to Jesuit, and then Allen, who's, again, I think the only loss is to Jesuit. So, those top 3 could be going back and forth really for, those top 3 playoff spots, but that 4th one could come down to Prosper Plano West right now. I mean, Plano Senior, McKinney Boyd, both 1-3. Boyd, I don't expect to, hang in there late. Plano Senior could make a little bit of a run, who knows. Plano East 0-4. I think they're just young and really trying to find their footing. But so Prosper and Plano West, Prosper, another team, we're learning our lesson about Prosper. We all have kind of been a little bit slow on the uptake as far as them coming up to 6A.
Yeah, they seem to be transitioning well. I think we can rule that out as
we can safely say
sports and
maybe
just assume they're going to compete in soccer and softball and baseball.
Yeah, maybe just start actually picking them to make the postseason. We'll see. But I think at the end of January 29th, it looks like Plano West has to go to Prosper in that rematch. And the way it's shaping up, that could be a game that determines who gets that 4th and final playoff spot. Potentially even better than that if they go on a run against some other teams. So Prosper, heavily involved in a lot of my teams and a lot of postseason discussion, and the Eagles and Lady Eagles are certainly making a 6A name for themselves this season.
Prosper proving all of us wrong in all sports so far in the 2018-2019 season. But that'll just about wrap it up for this edition of the High School Sports Podcast, your Star Local Media. Once again, I'm Brian Murphy. That's Justin Thomas. That's Taylor Ragland. We'll talk to you next week.